What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Backliners podcast. You know I got them in the wrong order on the overlay, and that's how it goes. That's the usual coin flip whenever we've got a guest on. It's Aggro and BaRRa, as per usual, but today we have a very special guest. It's lead designer for Smite. It's none other than High-Res or Titan Ajax. AJ, thanks so much for coming on to talk a little bit about Season 9 right before it launches.
Yeah, happy to be here. Miss you guys. It's fun to just hang out for a while.
I know. And we get a little bit of a late night start time so that we can now we can say whatever we want, because it's later.
Oh, whatever we want.
So dirty.
Can we
Whatever
or
the
can
hell
we not
we want.
swear? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. And BaRRa, if you watch enough I Think You Should Leave, that's a reference you should understand. But because you don't think that show's funny, you won't get it. So
BaRRa,
it's
you're
not
ruining.
that I don't think it's funny. It's just not funny.
BaRRa, come over here.
Right.
Come over here. You're ruining the podcast. Okay?
Yeah, you're ruining
You like
everybody
the show,
else is
AJ?
here.
Yes, AJ
I'm literally doing a bit from that same skit that Aggro was just quoting 1 second ago. Like,
why do you think the game is doing so well, BaRRa? It's because the lead designer is a genius who likes I Think You Should Leave. Like, it's the best show of all time.
It's not funny.
You're right. It's hilarious.
I wish it was.
well, everyone is open to their own opinion. That one just happens to be wrong.
Wrong.
You're not. You're wrong.
Hey, BaRRa and I are teaming up on that against you, AJ, on opposite sides of the same argument. AJ, remind me to show you. I got Mike. I got PBM a cameo from Detective Crashmore.
Oh,
as
nice.
like a Christmas present, and it's hilarious.
That's one of the most nonsensical skits in the whole show.
I love that skit so much. Every time
I
I
love
watch
it too, bro.
it's so good.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
BaRRa's
love
right
that part of the skit.
All right, let's talk about Smite
Love the
before I decide I don't want to be on a show with BaRRa anymore. It usually doesn't take that long. So last week we started on the Season 9 patch notes. Obviously, there's so much that we couldn't pack it all into one show. We talked about relics and all of their new upgrades last time, so we're going to start exactly where we left off, which is with glyph items. Essentially the new tier 4 items in Smite. I guess, AJ, if you just want to kind of give a quick rundown of how you guys got to glyph items and how they got to the point where they're releasing as they are.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking for new ways to spice up the item building whole process of building items. We really saw a big positive reaction from the boots removal. So we were like, okay, people really appreciate just some change ups in the item building process. And it's more than just introducing new item, right? It's like trying to introduce a new twist on the system as a whole, which is a tricky thing to do, right? Because it's already pretty complicated, and then getting too complicated is a bit of a risk. Relics were a little bit more straightforward because that's a pretty, standard, just 3 tiers, buy your upgrades, and people have kind of been clamoring for relic upgrades for a long time. But this was something we were trying to surprise the community a little bit. Clumsy and Lermy were more of the grand architects behind this design, but of course, I'm always there working with them, and I really like it overall. I think it does a cool thing, and I think probably Deathbringer is the one that kind of shows its peak usage and flexibility the most, is where we literally took items that didn't really thrive as individual items, but when you can get their passives in conjunction with other items that you actually want, that would be really exciting. But then also, all the rest of them have a lot of new passives, so it really it did a couple unique things all for the game all at once, and I'm just really excited to, it's gonna be a process, right? This is a very new thing. There might be some parts that are too strong or too weak, but we're always open to making changes as we go.
Yeah, definitely. I think that tier 4 items basically are something that players have been asking for a pretty good amount of time, and I think that introducing them in a limited fashion like this and the way that they've been implemented is a really cool and interesting way to do it. BaRRa, any overarching thoughts on glyphs before we get into the specifics?
Yeah, I was gonna say I just love the idea of just more pathways and more things to think about to build, as long as anything's not blatantly overpowered to play as or play against, it's fine, obviously. But I was a big fan of the relic idea. Even season 1, I loved it. just the fact that you can beads for aggression is just really cool. And the fact that you guys went down like the whole relic list and added like everything just makes the game so much more unique, in my opinion. And the tier 4s of items, in my opinion, are the same direction of uniqueness and putting more thought into your actual builds instead of just like, herder, I'm ADC, I've been building the same things, like, let me like spice this up a little bit. And I love that direction.
Yeah, I think in the amount of play testing I've done and PTS play and that kind of stuff, every game I'm like, oh my god, there's so many ways I want to be spending my gold. And it makes the game feel really dynamic, that it isn't as simple as buy the item that I can finish and buy some wards and walk out of base.
Yeah.
I really have to like think about, is it worth upgrading my Jotunns on the character that I'm playing or against their comp? Do I need that ability lifesteal on one of the Jotunn's upgrades? Or is it more important for me to spend my gold on my relics at my second item spike or, 6 items? Like, I don't know. I think that it just opens up a whole lot of really interesting thought paths, and that's what makes me really interested in MOBAs is these complex decisions. And so I think that's really smart. And I also really, I thought it was a really smart idea to not give these items any stat upgrades and only passives for their gold.
Yeah.
I really like that direction.
I mean, some of them kind of give stats through their passives, like the protection conversion on Amulet and Stronghold, and so there's some of that, but it's not as much as if it had stats on top of those, right?
Right, exactly.
And you just kind of like, it's an interesting place to be with these items where we didn't introduce a ton of them. It's not something we wanted like everywhere across the game, but we did try to introduce one that pretty much every god in every type of role or type of position would have at least one that's interesting to them, or at least possible to build without completely throwing off your plan.
Right.
Which gives you like a good level of decision making for the introduction of the item, right? Imagine if every single item had a tier 4 upgrade, but 2 tier 4 upgrades, but you could only like buy one. That would just be a huge amount of things to be introduced, a huge amount of them that would never get used to, right? Because you'd have to limit them or else you have the full build. So like a lot of times, I like to come on here when I get the chance to talk to people and just explain a lot of things that people like to suggest, but they don't really think about all of the possible domino effects that could happen from designing a feature that way instead of the way that we did, right?
Right.
People are really good at finding out the flaws of the way it is designed, but not so great about finding the flaws about the other ways it could have been designed.
Yeah.
AJ, come on, man. Just casually triple the amount of items in the game by coming up with 2 extra items for each item in the game already.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I think it's a reasonable start, and it's like, it gives us a lot of room to maneuver, which I think is really good because the Smite players, our Smite community, we're a really tight-knit community, and players like to be able to have an impact on the direction of these types of features, which is really cool.
Right. All right, let's get started then. We'll start off with the Heartward Amulet upgrades. The first one is Amulet of Silence. This one, you gain a stack each time an enemy within 40 units casts an ability, and at 5 stacks, your next basic attack against an enemy god will silence them for 1.5 seconds. This effect can only occur every 45 seconds. And your other option for Amulet upgrades is Amulet of the Stronghold, where 20% of your physical protections are converted to magical protections. BaRRa, any initial gut reactions on which one you think is stronger and in what types of situations?
The first one seems kind of awkward to use, mainly because it's your basic attack that has a silence. And I don't know. I see a lot more support players buying Heartward than I see solars buying Heartward. So I'm just trying to picture like a support reliably doing this. Like maybe you can get a lot of value on like Sylvanas or like characters you can easily get that auto attack off on.
Umoja.
Yeah,
Umoja as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that character. Love that character.
The most nerfed one in the game. Yeah, you don't have any problems with her anymore. You're fine.
Yeah, no, she's actually. I actually forgot about her. She's still good. That's weird. And then the other one, obviously, it's like very straightforward. You're just getting prots off of your magical prots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to introduce something here that just gives straight up supports something that they just know they want with like a lot of protections, and a lot of times Heartward, just because physical protections tend to be valued a little bit more than magical. we wanted to give something that the supports really wanted. Just if you're trying to go full tank, simple support, the Stronghold one is definitely good for you. Silence was obviously the one that's like has a lot more unique flavor to your play style or your god choice. But I think it has a lot of potential. Like imagine just pairing this with any traditional support, like Geb blinks in, stuns everybody, but then he could follow up on hitting someone else with a basic attack to silence them additionally longer after that.
Right.
Sobek plucks someone back, and as they're trying to run away, he just wipes you with his axe once and puts another silence on you as you're trying to get out of there. You can do some pretty interesting stuff. Bacchus can belly flop you, and then as soon as you land, silence you just a little bit on top of that, right? So it does have a lot of interesting applications for support, but we might actually see it in solo too,
Yeah.
True. Question about this item: do the stacks stay on you, or how do those work?
The stacks stay forever until you use
cool.
the effect, kind of like a polynomial or something.
Yeah, you hold it up basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't believe it's consumed on a miss either, which is something that is done on some cases, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case here.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe
That got him way better though.
maybe like Vomana, you want to be building a lot of physical protection on him. You just like splash an Amulet of the Stronghold and then like 6 physical defense items, and now you're tanking everyone, and you've got power and attack speed because of your passive. Yeah, I played a Ymir game recently where I was thinking about going Amulet of Silence, and then because I was really tanky and didn't feel like I needed the Stronghold passive, but I was like, I've got a lot of CC already. Do I need to silence them for another 1.5? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. That sounds awesome. Like, why wouldn't I want to do that?
Well, Ymir is kind of weird because you want to start hitting them right away, so you would kind of
Right.
overlap it with your stun potentially, which wouldn't be as good.
Right, yeah. But I think that both of these have some interesting things. Putting you on the spot a bit here, AJ, because I also don't know how it works. Athena Reach. Can I silence multiple gods with this?
Oh man, Athena Reach is such a mess, that ability.
Yeah.
It has so many unique interactions that are hard to tell if they'll consistently work.
Fair enough.
I honestly don't remember if I think we've specifically ruled it as a basic attack, so it should. I don't believe that this would silence multiple targets though, because it should
only be
consume
first
the
hit.
stacks and go on cooldown on the first hit. Yeah.
That would make sense. Okay.
But there is often bugs where Athena's Reach does not proc basic attack items that it's intended to proc. So
Gotcha.
that might be one. I don't know if it might have been already caught in PTS. Someone might have found it. It might work as intended, or it might be one that I'll be hearing about soon.
Fair enough.
You said on the podcast that this was supposed to work. Yeah.
Aren't you so glad when you do the podcast, AJ? So now you get to get yelled at about even more stuff.
It's okay. At least I've set myself up for that. This one might have
That's
that.
true.
That
Clip
might have
that.
that issue, but
Exactly. Hopefully, that definitely feels like a strong.
But that is a cool place also to apply this ability on, or this
100%.
item on. But this one's definitely much more specific to your comp or your playstyle than Stronghold.
Yep. Yeah, and if they've got a lot of channeled abilities, adding an extra silence feels really good.
But honestly, Amulet of Silence is the way that I like. Like that's one of my favorite glyphs. Honestly, I like the way that one plays because it is really unique and really like specific to your playstyle or your team comp or your god choice. Whereas we were trying to avoid making as many glyphs that were just like feel like you just want to buy this 100% of the time every time on the entire roll.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a good strength and weakness for both of those, and I expect both will see play depending on what they're playing against or what you have. Next up, it's Breastplate of Determination. Each time you are hit by an ability, gain a stack of 5 protections that corresponds to the damage type you were hit with, up to a max of 4 of each type. Once you reach max stacks of both kinds, gain a burst of 20% movement speed and double your protections gained by this effect for 8 seconds, after which all stacks are removed. So this is not going to be particularly good up against, for physical compositions and that kind of stuff, but very good against balanced team compositions. Oh, I was supposed to read both at the same time. Sorry. Breastplate of Vigilance is when your ultimate ability is finished casting, you provide an aura in a 40-unit range around you, reducing basic attack damage from enemies by 30% for 5 seconds.
Which has been nerfed to 15%.
Which has been cut in half.
10%?
Let's go!
15. I can't remember what we nerfed it to. Hold on, scrolling down the patch notes.
Yeah, I'm reading the originals, so sorry. Yeah, you can.
I'm here on the docs now.
Yeah, the official doc.
Well, I'm here on the public facing patch notes.
Yeah, you don't want to accidentally spoil something. But basically, once you then get an aura around you.
Yeah, 15%. Sorry. Yeah,
that cuts it in half, 15%. obviously 30% Breastplate of Vigilance was very strong, but both these Breastplate upgrades look pretty good to me, Bear. I don't think I'm going to be really upset about having either one of these if I'm a character building Breastplate.
Yep, I completely agree with you. In the testing I was doing, did determination get changed at all, or like buffs, nerfs, or anything?
No.
Okay, both felt very good. Like
Mhm.
I was definitely feeling extremely tanky with both. I was expecting Vigilance to get nerfed, and I'm kind of glad it did,
Mhm.
because that item with Shell was literally making ADCs do. You were tickling them. But the determination seems much more reliable because the stacks don't go away. And so a lot of times I would just run at the physicals and just keep those prots. And just they couldn't do damage to me, which was really enjoyable. And also the passive of the 20% and then doubling it, like if you do reach the max stacks, is very, very, very good. So I think both these upgrades, even though Vigilance got nerfed, I still think 15% just because it's an aura around you is still very good. And then Determination, I think both these are sick. I think both these have a lot of values where you can just buy them in any slot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about Determination is that, it adds a level of, can I, as like a solo laner with this, can I try and set myself up so that I get procced in a Gold Fury fight? Can I intentionally step up, and if I need 2 stacks of magical, can I bait the enemy's guardian or mid laner to hit me with an ability that doesn't deal a lot of damage to me, to then set me up to engage on my blink timer and then be able to proc this and double my protections from it and get my movement speed and all that kind of stuff. So it's just another way to make a play happen that probably is not going to show up to the average viewer or that kind of stuff. And honestly, I'd probably miss it casting because it's hard to do so sometimes. But it's like setting up your Osiris passive to be at the right time and that kind of stuff. It's those little things that I think allow you to min-max a fight. I think Determination does a really cool job of that.
They are, but first of all, they're exciting because putting passives on Breastplate of Valor is exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's kind of something that people suggested to us often. They're like, how come these items only have CDR and they don't have a passive? We felt that just adding a passive to them as a regular item was going to probably push them over the edge. So working that into the glyph system made a lot of sense because now there was a relevant cost increase, as opposed to just making this a 3600 tier 3 or whatever, which would have felt really bad, I think.
Right.
So that's really cool. I do like the way you mentioned Breastplate of Determination. I like Determination because I feel like it can be a fine, mindless item too. You could just buy it if you don't want to pay attention, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get hit with stuff, but I'm gonna get protected, and then sometimes I'm gonna go fast. You don't really have to think about it that much.
Right.
And I like that because there's a lot of players out there that enjoy things like that. But then Aggro already walked you through it. There's a lot of ways that you could pay more attention to this to really get it to trigger when you really need to. And then obviously Breastplate of Vigilance is an on-alt trigger, which is a very unique type of trigger we only use sparingly. So certain gods are really good at triggering this type of thing consistently on targets you want to trigger it on. Others have a harder time doing it, right? So there's already going to be a decision on what type of god you can play if you really want to focus on countering the enemy ADC, right? You're going to have to pick not just your god pick how they work into them, but you have to pick into, can I reliably even proc this item on them too, which is just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Big fan of both of these for sure.
Is there a visual effect on the Determination passive when it procs?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is, but I'm sure there is.
I don't recall what it looks like exactly. Yeah, it's probably a sprinty looking thing, but it
the lines coming off of them.
Yeah, but the protections can stack back up afterwards. I assume that they don't start stacking again until that 8 seconds is complete.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and 8 seconds for that much movement speed is quite a long time. So it's a strong proc. This Determination one, we're probably going to have our eye on this one. We're going to probably keep a close eye on this one here. I see some numbers.
Now that I'm reading this seems pretty good, actually.
I see some numbers.
Yeah, definitely some knobs to turn there is often said.
Which is a good thing, by the way.
Yes.
More knobs, the better, in my opinion.
Sometimes, not all the time, but yeah, it's nice because when it only does one thing, right, it can be harder.
Yep, definitely. All right, Deathbringer upgrades. Envenomed Deathbringer, critical hits on enemy gods afflict them with poison for 2 seconds. This poison slows them by 10% and reduces their damage output by 15%. and alongside that, Poison Star is no longer.
Rip Poison Star.
Yep, rest in peace.
Yep.
And rest in peace, Malice.
Nobody will miss you.
Yeah, seriously. Malicious Deathbringer. Successfully hitting an enemy god with a critical strike will subtract 1 second from all of your abilities currently on cooldown, except your ultimate ability. Barry, which one do you envision yourself building more often?
Honestly, I'm gonna do the cop-out answer. I think both of them are really sick. I think on Gods with Steroids, I think the Malicious Deathbringer is really good because you just basically permanently get your steroid up.
Yep.
But if I'm against a frontline where I feel like if I'm against like a Zonkui, Kakolin, like those kind of gods that I will need the Poison Star passive applied to them to help out our team fight, then I'll be going that route. But if I need obviously more cooldowns, or if I think that like on a guy like Chernobog where all of your cooldowns are so good, getting more of them is just better, then I'll be going the Malicious Deathbringer and just playing like selfishly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, getting a full second off of all of your abilities currently on cooldown, like I'm thinking on her, jump in, get some crits, probably use my Aegis. By the time that's up, my jump is back up. I get to use it, defensively or aggressively again. I think a lot of options in those things. So I think that both of these feel pretty good. AJ, anything to add?
Well, both of these items were really hard to find a good balance point for on their original tier 3 versions, where they were always a little too strong or a little too weak, or they were too narrow on their application. So I just really like how combining them with Deathbringer they were kind of in passes that people liked. They felt unique and interesting, right? But like Poison Star, when it was too strong, caused a lot of complaints. Malice, when it was too strong, was only really good on a narrow set, a few gods. So being able to bring these together, I think just makes both of those passives. It's just makes those items live on in a really unique way where they can actually fit into builds. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's something that the more veteran Smite players would appreciate more. But like being able to see something like the Malice actually show up in more builds now because of this flexibility is just, it's touching in a way. You're like, oh, poor Malice. Like nobody ever really cared for you, but now you can be a superstar finally.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
Yeah, that Malice passive always seemed so cool, but it was just like, you only get so many item slots. And now you get to actually play with this passive and see what it can do, which is going to be really fun. Dude, I just thought about like Circuit 1. Yeah, Circuit 1, because you can crit on each of the parts of Circuit 1, so you could subtract 3 seconds from all your cooldowns. That would be cool.
This one, I believe. Oh no, wait. We were talking about putting an internal cooldown on this, but I don't think we did. It was a common suggestion in PTS, and we did heavily discuss it, but we chose not to for the time being. But previous Malice did. A lot of times these effects do have a cooldown, so you can't just get a huge amount of crits really, really quickly.
Right.
But it felt like the amount of places you could apply that successfully were relatively, rare.
Right.
So we'll see, right? I mean, Circuit building full crit would be something we would like to see already, as opposed to seeing her in support so much. So, maybe that would be something big for her. But that's a balance topic that we had already considered and we're very close to doing, but decided not to for now. So
that would be cool. Do it.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Could happen.
That could be fun. All right, Jotunn's Ferocity. Your next basic attack marks an enemy god. If you hit the marked enemy or the marked enemy hits you with a base attack ability, gain 1 stack. Each stack provides 2% increased damage towards the marked enemy, stacking up to 10 times, so up to 20% extra damage. This effect can only occur once every 60 seconds. Or Jotunn's Vigor. If you drop below 40% health, you gain 10% movement speed and 40% of physical ability lifesteal for 5 seconds. This can only occur once every 15
And
seconds.
that one was nerfed as well.
I was gonna say,
the lifesteal was nerfed from 40 to 30.
Okay, so 30% physical ability lifesteal. So you've got kind of like a dueling one with Ferocity, but you need to be an assassin that can basic attack somewhere in your combo to make it worth your time. Or you've got sustain, heal back up type of one here from Jotunn's Vigor. Which one, give me some thoughts on these here, Barry.
I was using Vigor a lot because I felt like the cooldown on Ferocity was a little too long. So I didn't want to experiment with it because I was mainly playing Slash with viewers, so I wanted to like be constantly fighting, and I didn't want to like have to worry about that 6-second cooldown. But I do think for late game jungle 1v1s, Ferocity has to be sick.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the amount of damage output you can do, or well, I mean, like you said, you have to be a character that can proc it with the basic attack, which might change the way junglers are starting fights and positioning fights in late game, or I like mid game as well, obviously. But I felt a lot of value from Vigor, basically just because the cooldown's so low. I was getting a lot of procs of it, and also the physical ability lifesteal is pretty high. And then since it's building off Jotunn's, you already have cooldown built into it, so the physical ability lifesteal is just more attractive because you're obviously going to have more cooldowns and stuff. But I do think Ferocity does have its points, but I didn't experiment that much with it.
Yeah, I really.
Also, Ferocity might be good on ADCs as well. I just didn't.
Yeah,
it
could. It really could be.
Yeah, I played a Chiron game and I was like, man, Ferocity is gonna feel really good. And then I think I had to like build brawlers or something like that and didn't have room for it. But Ferocity on a god like Chiron, I'm sure would feel absolutely insane. Mark them, you already get the stack, hit them with the 2, it gives you more stacks, you know, you're doing everything really well. I do think that, you know, on a god like, I played a Thor game and I wanted both of these really badly because I felt like they could both be really good. Then I kind of ended up deciding that I'm not going to be able to basic attack early enough in my combo as Thor to make it really worth my time. So I ended up going Vigor. But if I was really ahead, I probably would have gone Ferocity and like spent the gold. I think that these two give you some really interesting split decisions. I think that overall Vigor is going to be more useful in more situations, but if you're able to snowball and like be the aggressor in the enemy jungle and force them to 1v1 you, then Ferocity is going to be really, really good for you. So I think that it's good. This is one glyph that I think that you need to be able to think about on your engage as an assassin, which is a good thing and really cool. But, you know, a character like, does Hun Bats really get a chance to use Ferocity super well? I don't know. But I think that, you know, maybe just good Hun Bats players will find a way to weave in an auto earlier than they typically do now, and they'll be able to kill you more easily because they get that base attack instead of just like using their 2 when they wanted to initially, something along those lines. So I think that these two are both very, very good, but it's just a matter of how you execute with Ferocity more often than not.
Well, the interesting difference between the two is specifically that Vigor doesn't really provide you any extra damage, right?
Yes.
It's just survivability, which could translate into more damage, but it doesn't do more damage. And you also have to be heavily injured for it to really do anything, right? So it's like an emergency button that you're more likely to use, but doesn't necessarily come up. And Jotunn's Ferocity, actually, I like the design of this item because it's like a whole story in an item. Like you really have to set up the fight, and then the fight kind of rises, the stakes raise over every single fight hit in between the two players, which is really cool, but it is a lot of investment. But I think it was really wise of the designers to not just give like a lot of free straight up damage to Jotunn's glyph already. So a little bit of survivability and lifesteal is a cool way to do it, as well as this like dueling upgrade, which I'm interested to see how much this actually affects the duel game mode, and if it's problematic there, or if it ends up being the only place that it's really viable. But I think we could end up keeping an eye on it and making sure it feels applicable. Like the cooldown, like BaRRa mentioned, the cooldown is pretty long, or having up to 10 stacks is kind of a lot of stacks. So we could make those gains more often or more frequently realized if we feel like it's not really doing what it's intended. But I think it's important that for either way, you're not just getting a bunch of free bonus damage, or you have to work for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting for sure. I think it says a lot. And like you said, Clumsy and Lermy were the two that really spearheaded a lot of these glyphs, and I think they did such a good job. And I can tell because even now, I've played with these a bunch, I've read these patch notes a bunch, and I'm just kind of going back and reading them again. And every time I like read these, I get a new idea of something I want to try, and I'm like, dude. Jotunn's Vigor Pele sounds so fun. I just want to like get hit to 30 and then full heal off my ult. Like that sounds so fun. And whenever, in my opinion, if if a new item or a new build path or whatever it is, new relic can inspire you to like play a god again or something like that, then that's just like an absolute home run. And I think that all of these inspire me to do different things, and that's really exciting for sure.
Yeah, I think ferocity might be really good with the idea that I had earlier with the cooldown steroid hunters. If you go like ferocity, malicious, Deathbringer, like fail nut on like Artemis, you'd be having like infinite cooldowns, and then whoever does go on you, because you're 100% going to get dove on most steroid characters, you're going to be plowing them, whoever it is. So that sounds pretty good.
Use a technical term.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that sounds pretty good, and I will be testing that on release.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That sounds fun for sure. All right, last glyph is Rod of Tahuti. First, we have Calamitous Rod of Tahuti. Successfully hitting an enemy god with an ability calls down a meteor that lands after 1.5 seconds, dealing 100 plus 30% of your magical power damage in a 15-unit radius. This effect can only occur. This has it as once every 90. I think that was changed, AJ, if I recall.
Yeah, the damage scaling was buffed from 30 to 40, and the cooldown was nerfed from 90 to, or buffed from 90 to 30, I believe.
Okay, so
So
really
you're gonna get a
buffs.
lot more often. Yeah, much shorter cooldown and higher damage.
And then there's Nimble Rod of Tahuti. This one's real simple. For every 40 magical power you have, you gain 2% attack speed. And I think that this is one that, like we were just talking about with Jotunns, those are ones that there are characters where there are a lot of types of assassins where I want both of those effects and I have to really choose. This one I think is a little bit more clear cut. If I'm a mage that cares about my attack speed, I'm going to be going Nimble. If I'm a mage that doesn't, I'm going to be going Calamitous. But there are some crossovers. Everyone's going to be unsurprised by this, but the first one I think of is Zeus, and I think I'd rather have Nimble on Zeus than Calamitous. So it's not...
Yeah, he also has no CC to help him with Calamitous.
Right. So there's no... it's not necessarily mage ADCs equal Nimble, non-mage ADCs equal Calamitous.
I mean, you have Thoth, who often uses his wall to get a bunch of extra damage on things.
Right.
His basic attack. You have things like Hades, who are also applying marks, but, don't need it as bad.
Oh, yeah.
But you have some options for sure.
Yeah.
You have Zhong Kui, who gets double proc basics, so getting that extra attack speed could be a non-zero amount of damage.
Right. Yeah, I think obviously Calamitous got a ton of buffs, and for good reason. I think this was the glyph that felt the most behind, but like we were talking about earlier, a lot of knobs to turn here, whether it's damage or cooldown or speed of the projectile, all that kind of stuff. All very doable things. So I never felt like Calamitous was really doing that much for me in my testing on PTS, but I'm excited to see, at 30 seconds and at 40% of my scaling, those are certainly a lot more attractive. So I'm definitely excited to try that one out. But BaRRa,
yeah, I think that opinion is pretty clear.
Yeah, definitely. BaRRa, I'm assuming that Nimble was feeling pretty good for you on those mage ADCs.
Yeah, I was gonna say this might be like one of the best soul items ever released. So I'm a big fan of Nimble Rod Tahuti. This item is gonna feel fantastic for me. And then I had the same opinion as Aggro for Calamitous. I thought it was like really bad on release just because it was 90 seconds and it just, like you said, it felt like it was the most behind.
Too inconsistent.
But yeah, that as well. And I think the buffs are sick to it, and I think it'll actually be bought now and used well. And I also didn't think of what you said, AJ, where if you're a mage with CC, I don't know why that never clicked in my head, but that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah,
you can guarantee it yourself.
Someone mentioned in chat like Scylla, like if you hit with a Scylla 1, it's a guaranteed meteor proc pretty much, unless they cleanse it.
Dude,
and Crush is coming down.
I like pull two people together.
Anything that does damage and CCs at the same time. Like, so this does say successfully hit, which, again, I don't want to be throwing anyone under the bus, but that generally would mean that even if you hit with like an Anubis mummy that does no damage, the meteor would proc. So you can definitely, there's certain gods it's going to proc better on. And also, we got a lot of feedback about the timing and the area of effects, but those things are harder to change in PTS because they require other changes from the art team and stuff like that. So we're definitely going to keep that in mind going forward if we feel like this item's not showing up enough, or if just Mage ADCs are just continue to dominate, we'll be looking at that archetype as a whole for nerfs. And there was also, I guess it's not really as interesting of a bug fix, but there was a bug as a balance change where there was a bug fix for Nimble Rod where the passive was just stop working sometimes on PTS, but that's been fixed. When there was a bug on the PTS where if you died a single time, I think the passive just turned off and didn't come back on. So
position better for
that was not the intent, so we fixed that.
Yeah, bringing back the old.
Although maybe we should make an item that does that. Like,
yeah,
you die one time and just sell it, bro. Just sell it. Like you just messed up.
Dude, those old hearts, stacking Heartseeker and that kind of stuff, just take it to the extreme. More. Yep.
Oh yeah, never mind. We already had that. We're not doing it again.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that does it for glyphs. We're gonna have to probably zoom a bit here towards items. There's no chance we get to.
You probably want to go more. You want to go more general, like class role, like as a single topic. That's how I wrote the patch notes, so that'd make it easier. But that's up to you. That's how you got to run your show.
Well, it's just the thing is that I looked at like my little, on a website, you see like where your scroll wheel is, and I'm at like 40. I'm not even at 50%.
Yeah, we're almost halfway.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to, it would be a pipe dream to get through them all tonight. So we'll probably just do itemization tonight and then gods after we get some more games in because the patch goes live on Tuesday.
Yeah, tonight is the only night for speculation, though.
I know. Yeah, and they do come for the hot takes. That's for sure. Yep. All right, real quick, crit adjustments. Just more likely to hit on your percentage of your crit chance. You're less likely to be streaky one way or the other. You're less likely to be unlucky or incredibly lucky when tossing these crits. BaRRa, how did this feel to you on PTS?
Well, ADC felt really good the games that they weren't building breastplate and shell and that kind of stuff, but now that those have been nerfed, I think crit will feel way better. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually do damage, but I didn't actually realize I didn't feel the crit adjustment, I guess. Or like as a player, it's hard to numerically figure out if I'm supposed to be critting in that situation or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel that difference. Yeah, it was more about just.
Well, you're also doing 25% less damage each crit.
Yep.
Yes.
Did you feel that difference?
Everything felt bad when I was countered. I'll just say that.
Yeah, if they were going to build the good stuff against you, you weren't going to be doing damage no matter what. And that wouldn't have changed with the 25% extra, I imagine.
Yep.
One way or the other.
Yep.
AJ, you can tell me if you feel a different way, but for me, I read the dev notes here and what you guys said, and read Chaos's incredibly big brain thread about it on Twitter. And if BaRRa's feedback is, I didn't notice it, that seems like an absolute win.
Correct. Yeah.
That's generally feel more smooth overall. And if you don't notice that you feel like you're critting less than you should have, then it sounds like it's working.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's generally the thought process here. Really, the bigger change to it was the damage nerf, right? The damage nerf to crit is a pretty big deal. It's all moving towards a little bit more of a normalization. Like, it feels good to crit and get some bonus damage, but it didn't need to be as intense and as RNG driven. Just too high risk, high reward tends to feel bad in MOBAs for everyone. But I think also, no risk, no reward also feels bad. So, there's definitely a room for, we were not interested in the very popular Reddit suggestion of just remove crit and do something different in its place.
Right.
Like, hitting streaks of basic attacks to, deals more damage or something like that, right? There's this common proposal to just get rid of crit, but it's nice to still have. So I think the damage nerf is the part that most people are overlooking. And like when we shipped items like Atalantas and everyone's looking at it in a vacuum and they're like, why is this item so insane? It's like, because this item is doing 25% less damage than it would have done before.
Right. Which
is a 25% damage nerf is massive, right? There's very rarely do we nerf any single thing in the game when it's overpowered by 25%. It's extremely rarely. So all hunters, all crit builds got hit like that hard, which is why some of these crit items go real hard.
Yeah.
And I think the general audience just kind of missed out on that and was thinking a little bit too much about, okay, like, so the algorithm and like, you know, there's trigonometry flying around in their brains and stuff, and they're trying to calculate how much is they're going to hit. It's like, no, you just do less damage all the time, though, also.
Right.
So I think it's a good balance of what we struck, but it's definitely going to be one that we're going to require a good bit of data collection on. It's going to be hard to collect this from perception. So I'm interested to see how do hunter build damage change overall, like how do hunters per damage per match change in the future, things like that, to help us make any future guided decisions on it.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, really quickly over starter items, a couple solo laners get changes.
Bluestone is back. All right, there's my hot take for the day. Bluestone is back. Everyone's gonna build Axe because they're cowards forever.
All right, confirmed.
But Bluestone
if you
is
build
back.
Axe day 1 of season 9, you're confirmed scared. Go.
Also, Death's Toll has been buffed many times too, and people have just thought like that they have kind of forgotten about that as even a possibility. But everyone's gonna say Axe has to be built. Everyone's gonna keep building Axe because it's the safe pick.
Yep.
But then we're going to see Bluestone come back and do some work, even with just this small gold change, as well as just the other changes in the entire patch.
You know what? You're right, AJ. Bluestone is back. I'm with you. I'm hopping on.
And then I think Talisman is also, if you end up against a Bluestone warrior in solo, you're probably still better off switching to the sorry, I always call it Talisman because it looks like a necklace, but Sigil. Yes. Because the Sigil, the stacking protection is going to be really good for you. The Axe is you're going to get bullied harder if you start with the Axe. So we did nerf Axe again, though. If we have to nerf it again before people get the picture, we will. But I think already it's in a good spot. But sometimes we have to go over and beyond the actual balance before people get the point.
Yep.
Smite players are really smart.
Happens all the
really
time.
Smart.
Yeah.
Remember when Guan Yu was good and Guan had to get like 5 buffs in a row, and then everyone was like, "How did he get to this point? He's insane." Yeah. It's like you didn't play him for all these buffs. Like we knew.
Guan Yu was good for like 4 years, and then still had to be buffed.
Yep, exactly. Okay. The only other starter I wanted to mention, Eye of the Jungle upgrades getting buffs, I think is good. We did see a good amount of Eye of the Jungle as a starter item. But
the pros really punked us on that one.
Yeah, they
by really not buying this item. They were like, "Hey, this would be funny if we just never buy this item and then they wait until they buff it and then build it a bunch of worlds."
Exactly.
Like always, you got me, guys.
Isn't it really fun to have to do balance like weeks before we actually get to see it implemented? We just have to like predict what based on what they're saying. And
as far as something that we buffed that showed up at Worlds, that's not too big of a deal. That's pretty fair.
And
could have been worse.
And those upgrades were underperforming, I think, in comparison to the other jungle upgrades. So I'm a fan of Seer and Protector upgrades. Okay, Mystical Mail nerf feels good. Pridwin nerf feels good. Always a fan of those. Bulwark nerf.
And that shield nerf also translates to the damage nerf because the damage is based off of the shield size.
Right.
So that's a pretty big nerf for solos. Which again, a lot of people were going a little crazy over how many new items introduced some seemingly powerful things to solos, but at the same point, heavily nerfing 2, if not 3 of their core items. It's a big shift. They might be in a stronger position overall, but it's -3 plus 3.5 or something like that, at most, which is still a big difference. And changing 3 whole items in your build or so could change up the god pool quite a bit as well.
Right. And then BaRRa Telkines loses 10 power. Big deal for Mage ADCs or no?
We'll see. Sometimes Mage ADCs are good and sometimes they're bad. So it's just kind of like when they feel like they can get absolutely bullied by hunters is when they'll disappear. And I don't know if this change is big enough to push them out, but also it's a brand new map, brand new meta, so we'll see. And also, in my opinion, Mage ADCs are just better in comp than they are in ranked, and that stuff because you just get more peel and more setup and everything. So we'll see. We'll see.
We might have to. I totally believe it'll be possible that a Mage ADCs have to be nerfed again in 9-2. But it was hard to tell, and really for the start of the new season, we don't like any particular archetype or role or class or even sub archetype to feel, oh, like this is totally not my season. Like already, it hasn't even started and I'm out, right? So we knew, even though Mage ADCs are overperforming, you could say competitively, they're more popular right now. We didn't want to over nerf that and just take a whole bunch of gods off the roster. We like to try to keep the beginning of the season as open as possible. But if Mage ADCs continue at the rate that they're going to be cruising for another nerf, that's for sure.
Voidstone gets another 100 health, and the magical protection aura debuff goes up from 10 to 15%. I don't think we saw Voidstone built like at all in season 8.
Ever since the heavy pen changes to mages and kind of getting rid of that old pen boots guardians build, we've never really seen Voidstone. So it seemed like it high in time to finally buff it. I'm really excited at the possibility of seeing it. I think it's more likely going to stay in a casual item and a non-conquest item, but I'd love to see it show up on an aggressive, pro build at some point on maybe an Ares, which we have seen, throughout the season quite a few times. We had a few Ares specialists.
Yep.
And when the other team doesn't seem prepared for that pick, it can be really, really strong.
Yep, definitely. Saw a lot of success with it. BaRRa, any thoughts on being bad against going against Ares, like as a player historically? Anything that comes to mind there?
Not really sure what you're talking about here.
Oh, well, I was just referencing it. Never mind. Emperor's Armor.
Is that a fact? Does BaRRa have a losing rate against Ares?
Yes, BaRRa is maybe the worst player. BaRRa's really bad against two gods in particular, and it's Ares and it's Giannis, and it's the Giannis one isn't even his fault. I'll give him.
It's really not.
He's a Giannis alt magnet. Every cross map Giannis snipe hits BaRRa, and I do agree that that's not his fault. I am gonna give BaRRa some culpability for being bad against Ares, though.
Fair enough.
I just don't have enough beads, don't have enough CC immunity. My teammates don't have enough beads, CC immunity.
We released Charybdis now,
I was gonna say the same thing. We just gave you Charybdis, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll still die to him, bro. Just I'll find a way. Also, I will say 100 health is a lot. That is a big buff for Voidstone. I feel like people are overlooking this just because, as you said, Aggro has kind of been unbuilt for a long time.
Yep.
Or unbuilt, not built. 100 health is a lot. That is a big buff.
Yep, agreed. Emperor's Armor gets a little buff. That one feels good, but pretty much the same thing. Jade Emperors, with the Voidstone buff, maybe we could see like the Yorms. Artio obviously saw a ton of play.
We saw a Jade at Worlds.
I think we did see like one, yeah.
I think we saw
Another
actually
Ares buff.
one. Because I was surprised to see it actually, because we hadn't seen it much at all.
Yep.
Another counter item for hunters, though, which perhaps we may have over-indexed on this update just a little bit, but Emperor's Armor, I think, is also just sleeper good. It's a very good item. It does a lot of good things for you. People underrate the passive, especially sieging and smite is very difficult, and people really undervalue that how much Emperor's Armor can help your team siege, which can make your whole life easier, which can be really strong.
Yeah. And I mean, a 40% attack speed, now it's 50% buff to your tower. Like, if you could give a 50% attack speed buff to anyone on your team, you would insta-buy an item that does that,
Well, you have to be standing under your own tower, right?
Right. It's certainly situational, but it's so strong. And now you're getting 50% more auto attacks.
Well, we also made it asymmetrical now, where defending your own tower is stronger than sieging the opponent's tower. So we're interested to see if that actually makes it, if it becomes meta enough and you see them on both supports all the time, then the whole sieging phase gets even more difficult as opposed to easier, which will be interesting. But it'll only be a 10% difference as opposed to the 40 or something percent difference swing you could get if you get it and your opponent doesn't, right?
Right.
Which could be really big.
Yeah.
Since the passive does stack and offset, and it used to cancel itself out, but now it's still values the defender.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much we'll see of that. I think it definitely could be good. Black Dorman Runeforged get some adjustments.
Don't even read these because we've changed them already.
All right, not even reading them.
Well, we've changed We didn't change Runeforged, but we completely rechanged the whole Blackthorn one, and now it's just. It is what it is before, except minus 20 power or something, a big nerf.
Sure. Hide the Nemean line gets a little bit better. As you said, maybe over-indexing a little bit against hunters, but something to keep an eye on. And then Berserker Shield getting 10 more physical protections, feeling good for some of those auto-attack warriors, which haven't been super dominant in recent memory.
Right, so Solo is still seeing potentially a big shift in their builds with getting 4 of their potential key items build when you include Blackthorn as well. 4 of their key items being nerfed heavily. And a bunch of different ones being buffed, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to pick them up. So it's going to be interesting to see what they end up picking.
Make sure you watch twitch.tv/Nika tomorrow or on Tuesday to figure out what he's building, because that's what I'm going to do for whenever I'm doing it. Nika, friend.
It's going to be an exciting day, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for Tuesday, man. It's going to be awesome. All right, some more mage changes. Staff of Mirrodin gets another 10 power and increase the duration of the passive from 6 to 8. Man, this item, I know whenever it got reworked that if it released in that state, it was going to be busted. But I was really excited to play with it. And then everyone just lost their minds. Mages can never get anything super OP, so it had to get gutted, which was fairly appropriate. But now no one's built it. And I want to get a chance to run around and do some crazy stuff with Mirror.
We're going to get you back there. We're going to get it back there.
Yes, I believe. I'm a believer for sure.
Yeah, I think this is in the realm of like Voidstone, of just like people or items that people just forgot about.
Yep.
And like, oh, I just can't build this item. And I think this is a very big buff to Mirror. Also, it's a very exciting item as well. So
Agreed.
Yeah,
this item's fun. It's fun.
Agreed. And I like its art. You know, I'm seeing its art blown up here. There's a good art. What it's got going on.
I love a good art.
Yep. Celestial Legion Helm, good art. Yeah, that's our feedback for this one. Celestial Legion Helm gets a little bit of power, but loses some protection, so a little bit more offensively focused. Maybe Paul will build this instead of Breastplate, though I doubt it.
Yeah, we'd like to see some ability to counter the early jungle if you really want to, you know, but people tend to not want something too protecty. You just need a little bit. A little bit of protections goes a long way in the beginning. So having more power to actually make this feel like a reasonable item to have throughout half the game where you don't feel like you just want to sell it as quickly as possible.
I feel like I can hear Ponpon's voice in my head being like, the first 100 protections are the most valuable. There should be like a little like the more you know pop up of Ponpon.
Yeah, where he comes into we have to go to an elementary school and book a room so we can turn a chair backwards and sit down on it and tell us about things.
Hey kids, did you know that your first 100 prots are the most valuable that you can build? Like that, just little things like that to teach you the intricacies of how it works. Ponpon's like my little angel on my shoulder of how math works all the time.
That is true.
I think this will be pretty good on Mage ADCs as well.
Ah, that's a good point. Good point, Bear.
Yeah, helps you trade in lane.
I want to say back in the day, it was like season 3 or 4, we were like rushing the old Celestial.
Yep.
I do think it's quite a sacrifice to rush this item instead of the other traditional, like usually Mage ADCs, they just want their rings, they want their lifesteal so bad. It would be tough to do. But if you're really against, you know, a physical hunter and you're getting a jungler that you think is going to visit your lane frequently, I could totally see it makes sense.
Yep.
Or like a double physical lane, like if people start running like
the warrior support or the assassin support. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Fenrir support getting this would feel.
We saw a lot of that at Worlds, that's for sure.
Sure did. Warlock staff got 10 more power. Still think this item is pretty underrated, but was punished by fast jungler starts depending on season 9. If you're able to get through your early game with less jungle visits than you did in season 8, which remains to be seen, then Warlocks is going to be good. That's if you're playing a few weeks from now and you're like, I don't get ganked that much, you should probably start building Warlocks.
Okay.
Were you
dumb question is this like the base power or like...
base power?
Yes, that's base power.
Okay.
Another thing to note just about this section we're entering is that all of these are actually percent pen items getting some buffs. They're not getting buffs to their percent pen, but they're all getting buffs. As well as it's not on this section of the patch notes, but you scroll down in the PTS changes, Mages also got buffs to all of their flat pen items as well. So we know that the traditional mid lane Mage was something people were a little concerned about going into the season. We wanted to bring them up. We had buffed all these percent pen items, which we thought was a pretty good start, but in PTS we found that wasn't quite enough, so we buffed all the flat pen as well. So
and that is huge.
Just an important thing to consider when you're only looking at one change line, you know, that says Warlock staff getting 10 power, but it's also it's a percent pen item, so you're now getting more flat power while also building percent pen, which can be really important.
Yep. I'm a Warlock staff lover. I think it's been really underbought in general.
I agree. I think that item is really strong. I understand people who think they're not going to actually get to realize the full gains of it, but man, it's a good item.
Yep. Then Charon's gets 10 power. So does Obsidian Shard, and Obsidian Shard loses 100 gold on the cost, so it gets better there.
Ob Shard has to be good by now, please.
It is.
It has to be.
It's good. Build it.
Please.
Build it.
And Charon's is also one we've been back and forth on quite a bit. You know, that was kind of the Mage meta item for the first half of the year.
Yep.
Bringing back power on it, because I think the mistakes with Charon's coin usually end up when it just gives too much utility and too much other stuff. But I think it's good for us to have strong power and percent pen choices for the Mages.
Yep. And like AJ said, getting 5 more flat pen on Desolation, Divine Ruin, and
All 4,
Spear
right?
of the Magus.
Oh no, just 3 because
Just those 3.
the shard
Obsidian,
is in
right,
the
is the
last
other one.
item, right?
That is a huge change for mages. I think that in my testing, I thought it was very noticeable. I'm going to be building to start the season. I'm going to be on double flat pen rush again.
So you're not going to be playing hunters though?
No, I'm not playing a whole lot of hunters unless my ADC is locking Freya or something like that. Then I would, but I'm intending. I think that in what I played, mages felt very, very strong through the early to mid game, like from your first flat pen item until your second flat pen item. I do think that they are not quite as good in the late game as some other classes, but that's just my impressions right now. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But I think that it's going to be a lot like it was whenever flat pen was strong a few seasons ago, which is at your 2-item power spike, you are going to be the strongest character on the map. And I would play characters that abuse that well. So
another point that I saw come up a few times in PTS that I thought was really interesting was if people are building into all of the anti-hunter items, that's going to make having a mage really important.
Yep.
Or if you try to build a mage ADC and mid-hunter comp, you're going to get double countered by all that stuff. So another thing that I think people often lose in the early perception phases of these topics is how the overall class balance can influence each other. So we might see mages rise up again, not just because of their item buffs, but just because you need some good old-fashioned ability damage just to chunk people. And you got better flat pen, better percent pen options now that, as well as those bonus damage procs that might just be enough to help get those frontliners off your backline,
Yeah, I'm a big believer in mages in the early to mid game right now. I think they're going to be really good there. I just think that, I don't think Tiamat uses like double flat pen as well as a god like Poseidon or something like that is going to. So pick with that in mind. If you don't want to build like Magus plus Deso or Deso plus Divine, and you won't be feeling good about it, then I don't know how good that mage is right now. But if you can build those things, like Merlin rushing those 2 flat pen items feels really good. That's what I'm going to be playing.
Discordia, Agni.
Yep. Yeah, Agni feels really good with them. Discordia, those are definitely
I'm so bummed we didn't see a World's Agni after all the buffs he got this year. He feels so good right now.
I do think he feels good as well. But
he's close. He's close. Maybe he'll need one more buff if we can cleverly design it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I think it depends on the junglers that are being played, if he can be played.
Yes. Yeah,
like
he has some bad jungle matchups for sure.
He's weak to Fenrir.
Yes.
Yeah. Fenrir used Brutalize. It's super effective. Yeah, we all know how it goes.
Absolutely. Rage, going into some hunter itemization. Rage gets 5 more power. Failnaught gets 150 gold off, and Failnaught was already starting to come back a little bit pre this buff. And again, this is all with the idea in mind that you're critting for less damage, so these items lost stat efficiency, so giving them some back in some areas makes a lot of sense. Deathbringer gains 5 power, 5 crit chance, and loses 100 gold, so now sub 3k.
Big buff.
Yep, big buff to Deathbringer, plus, of course, your glyphs building off of that. Shadow Steel gets another 5% attack speed, and the duration of the healing reduction debuff goes from 6 seconds to 10 seconds. So that feels really good. This was already really this was already kind of slotting in that first item slot. If you were a character that was going to be building crit and didn't use Crusher that well, you could kind of put Shadow Steel in that same slot. I imagine that this feels really good as a first item. No.
We had seen a few people do that, and I feel like the player base generally thought they were like memeing or something like that. They were like, "Why are you building this item? It's bad." But people just generally undervalue anti-heal. But that's a different topic.
Agreed.
I like that especially the Deathbringer buff. It's maybe a little heavy-handed because Deathbringer now with the crit damage reduction on a normal crit, Deathbringer becomes even more important because it's effectively the percent increase you're seeing from Deathbringer is even bigger than before.
Right.
But then it's also getting really heavily buffed. So it's really kind of us saying, like, if you're going to go crit build, you probably need Deathbringer.
Yep.
But, I've already been seeing some really interesting builds. I think Zapman had already claimed to have optimized the Season 9 build already for pure damage, and it hasn't have any of the items that we've said have been strong today so
Really?
far. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't recall it exactly by
I don't
memory,
remember the
but
build, but I remember it was like the math guy figured it out, and this is
yeah.
like Zap's new build. And
It's
it was
like
like
Silver
super random.
Branch,
Yeah.
Jotunn's Glyph, not the like I don't, maybe just I'd want different, maybe a Crusher or something like that. It was an interesting build. I think it did have a crit splash in it, still like maybe Wind Demon or something. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Hunter builds. As tends to happen with Hunter builds, once we find one that we think everybody kind of agrees on is the best, the build diversity tends to come down quite a bit, right? That does tend to happen, but it'll be interesting to see if we can maintain two different. Usually, it's a dream scenario if we can maintain two completely different Hunter builds that both feel viable on different gods or different, play styles. So that would be awesome if we could see that, like a crit and a non-crit build. I'd love to see that, or even you could just keep the balance well between true basic attack versus ability Hunter builds.
Yep. BaRRa, here's a big one. Atalanta's bow now is 2350 for 40 power, 25% attack speed, 20% crit chance, 10% life steal, same passive. This one
had a cost increase and a nerf from 40 to 30 power in PTS. So now it's 30 power instead of 40 and 2500.
Gotcha. Still building it on that stat line?
I was going Devos into Atalantis. I don't think you can ever go Atalantis first because its power isn't high enough, so it doesn't feel great on clearing and boxing and basically everything. It just doesn't have enough power. But the Devos buff into Atalantis, I think, feels really good. But
yeah,
it was I was building that, and my chat was like, "That's not like the highest DPS build, but like getting like 40% lifesteal in your first two items is gonna feel pretty good." And the Devo stuff, in my opinion, is pretty good. So if someone's rushing Crusher against you, and you're going Devos, and you can survive, I think you just need to survive the first like minute, like maybe minute and a half against that, and then your lifesteal just shoots up as they're like going the early game spiking build.
Yeah.
So
are you building Death Toll in that situation?
It depends on the Hunter I was going, but yeah, I was going a lot of Death Toll.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Zap's build did not have Atalantas or Devos in it.
Interesting.
Yep. I think it was Crusher Aussie and like I want to say like Silver Branch. I think it was still going the double flat pin into. It was
Deathbringer. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This Devos buff, you no longer have to stack it to 70. It's now 50 stacks, and the power per stack has gone up from 0.5 to 0.8. So you need less stacks, and it actually increases your total power from 65 to 70. This item has got to be good.
That's a lot of power.
It's just a lot of power
on a single item, yeah, and less stacks. So it's hard to believe that that's not a really good item now.
Yeah,
but it's crazy to me that people still have a lot of competition with it, which is cool.
Yeah, it's definitely not dominated from what I've seen. But like you said, Hunter builds typically homogenize more quickly than other builds.
I mean, the Silver Branch buff from up to 20% pen too is also, that's a big 10%. You might see a 10 increase on some other things like 10 power somewhere, but that's not a big of a deal maybe. But 10% pen is really huge. But that was mostly because Atalanta's rework to a crit item, we wanted to make sure Hunters and basic attackers still had a 20% pen option available to them. Because those are very rare across the game, right? 20% pen items are pretty rare.
Yep, those definitely come at a premium. And then Toxic Blade increased max stacks from 2 to 3. Feels good. That feels more like an auto attack assassin buff that Hunters typically don't have room for it. They'd rather go Shadow Steel. But
that's what I was gonna say.
Still feels good for Toxic Blade for sure. So definitely some interesting Hunter itemization. BaRRa, do you know what general build you would recommend for Hunters loading in on Tuesday? What you're going to be trying to make work?
I'm probably going to troll around with the like Devos, Atalantis, steroid Hunters with like Belnut, Deathbringer, and like the new Jotunns just to play around with it and see how good it feels.
You gonna throw Runeforged in there for me?
I'll sell my starter for Runeforged for you.
There you go.
But I don't know, that amount of lifesteal just feels so good. Like, obviously, I don't think that build's gonna be the max DPS build, but I think when you're going Devos, you're not going max DPS anyways, you're just going max survivability. And also, you can tank objectives so much easier with that amount of lifesteal plus crit. Like you might be able to like solo Gold Furies now
Yep.
with that build with the crit. So it just depends on like if you want the max DPS build or if you want survivability, which in my opinion is exciting because I view both options as very good options to build. It just depends on what your role is in the game and what you as a player want to do.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that from a design perspective because I like when hunters generally they're considered only just do the most damage, but now when you have options like beyond doing the most damage that could be attractive, that's great. As well as with the Toxic Blade and Shadow Steel buffs, they have some of the best healing counter on them as well, which is really cool because I feel like a lot of time when a hunter is just chaining basic attacks onto you, like you shouldn't be able to heal out of that. Like that is something that you really shouldn't be able to. Like maybe getting poked with a long distance mage ability, okay, fine, you should be able to run away and heal up. But I think hunters really, given the option, should be able to be the shredders to take those type of players down. And obviously, assassins could be, doing that as well. But to me, that's a really cool kind of almost not to say rock paper scissors, but it's creating some cool individual class to other classes that are asymmetrical type of counters.
Yep.
Because I don't really
I
think we
completely
gave healers anything good against hunters, but we did give warriors something good against hunters. But then hunters can shred healers, so it's some cool like subclass counters going on in season 9 that I'm excited to see. That could change your build from time to time more so than we see hunters normally do.
Definitely agreed. All right, last but not least, itemization for assassins. One of my favorites that I'm really excited about is Hydra's Lament. It goes from 2150 to 2300, so 150 gold more, but now has 10% physical penetration.
That's a cheap price for 10 pen, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And we just saw that because Silver Branch, it cost 200 gold for 10% pen and only 150 here. So Hydra's Lament got it on sale. And I think Hydra's going to be sick, man. I think that this item is so good and so cool. And Hunbats, Susano, like these types of assassins that want to be building Hydras but couldn't fit it before are going to be very happy and be more than willing to spend the extra 150 gold. Just feels really good.
It's an exciting item to see come back, right? It's an item that's always been a kind of a fan favorite, but never really been meta. So it's like, I think it's about time.
Yep. Agreed. Maybe even Thor can start building again. The old Hydra's Thor. Make sure you one-shot someone through your combo. Really fun. Golden Blade got 5 more power from 30 to 35 and 5 more attack speed from 15 to 20. So
see, here's the thing, though. The gods that use Golden Blade are terrible right now. So
yes,
we're trying our best to give them something. But
Arachne, Bakasura.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Good luck.
I think it's going to help a good bit. And, those gods can really be casual shredders, but don't see them much on the high end. I'd like to see them show up a little bit more on that end, but it might just be not possible, right? So at least we want to make them feel better at other levels of play.
This also is a massive buff to laning Horus or jungle Horus, as he is a Golden Blade.
That might be a real thing, too, with the Horus buffs later in this patch.
I really hope it is. I think
I would actually be very excited
Horus
to see that, too.
Really cool. I would love a world where Horus is a viable jungler. I think that would be such a cool god to have in the jungle. But I don't know.
Well, I love the idea of a support warrior, but I think we pushed him too far into it, right? So I love the idea of bringing him back to being more of a flex warrior. If Horus takes over Erlang Shen spot or whatever, that would be really cool, right?
Agreed. Absolutely love that. Soul Eater gets 5 more power on the base version and on Evolved, but also increase the physical ability lifesteal from 20% to 25% on Evolved Soul Eater. Don't go Soul Eater if you're an assassin and you've got like a Hell or an Afro on your team, because they're going to build Divine anyways and you're going to be really sad. But if you have no healing at all on your team and you're a god like Pele or something like that can make use of, or Bastet, these ability-oriented assassins, Soul Eater can still be really good in those. And maybe this helps Wukong come back as well, because last time Wukong was meta, he was kind of building this.
With the Bluestone buffs.
Yep.
We've definitely seen this on a few warriors, and I'm also just interested to see if I feel like this item has never really been that good.
Yep.
Like, I guess maybe it's in some early days, like when it was first redesigned or something like that, it maybe was really strong until it caught its first nerfs, but just excited to see if this can do anything different to the warriors and the assassins that do use it, because it's very specific. I don't know. This item asks very specific things of you as a player.
Yep.
And a lot of people, I feel like, just build this item just because they love this item. They build it on anyone they can, even if it's really terrible on them.
Right.
So I'd be interested to see if we get the higher skill tier picking this item up and people get some guidance on where this item is actually good instead of just throwing it on every warrior they can because they think it's fun to heal themselves a little bit.
Yeah, that's honestly whenever I buy the item.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's most of this item's usage is that.
Yep. Two things that just came to mind really quickly. BaRRa, the Hydra's buff, really good for Hydra's Medusa, so make sure you're trying that.
Do you think Hydra's is viable on any hunters?
It is to like troll around and have fun with, but in an actual competitive scenario, I don't think I would go it. But maybe
AJ,
I don't know.
How is Hydra's Medusa bad? This is what I've been saying to him this whole time. Okay, you come around the corner. They're good players. They turned around, but they're slowed. Hydra's auto. Then you dash. You Hydra's auto. You 2. You Hydra's auto. You 1. You Hydra's auto. It's gotta be good.
I really thought this item always has had hunter potential. Yeah. I honestly believe that that's the case, but for whatever reason, because maybe no attack speed or something like that, we haven't seen it yet. But hey, with the percent pen, maybe we will see it now.
It can't be not OP.
I'm honestly surprised we've never seen a meta where this was a popular hunter item.
Yeah,
because it seems so much easier to hit the procs than on an assassin.
But I think like Pringle's running like Hydra's crit Uller, and it would like one shot you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
That God's. I guess it's in my opinion, it's only Uller. Medusa.
Gotta be good.
If I can freely dash every situation, yeah. But
it'd be sick.
If I'm just pressing my 1 and auto attack.
I mean, what about even someone like Artemis? You like Tusky, they're guaranteed stunned. Boom, you get a hit. Drop the trap on them. They're guaranteed rooted. Boom, you get a hit on them. Turn on your stim, you're gonna get another hit. I feel like it's good on more gods than we give it credit for.
It just depends on some. I think I would rather have like a more consistent DPS item unless I'm bursting an assassin down.
Sure.
Against tanks, it doesn't feel great, but maybe with the penetration,
that'll help a lot. And that was also intended to help assassin scale better into the late game.
Yep.
I'm really glad everyone
We'll
enjoys our Hydras on Hunters podcast.
I'll test it for you.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's what we want to hear. Also, this is my second thought. Looking at this, the unevolved Soul Eater art next to the evolved Soul Eater art, this is a very easy I sleep woke meme. Because it's like darkened and then like eyes lit up. So someone else get on that, please. This
podcast has been going too long already.
What do you mean? Last item for us to talk about, Bloodforged. How about this? I think that it's really funny. I see it in other MOBAs all the time. Like League players, like they are so keyed in on like what each stat is worth in gold, like monetarily. Bloodforged, this buff is very exciting and very cool, but I think it's so funny. Decreased cost from 2,800 to 2,750, so it's 50 gold cheaper. And added 5% movement speed all the time. So you heard it here first. The official amount of gold that 5% movement speed is worth is negative 50 gold.
That's definitely not the case,
no,
right?
I know, I'm trolling. I'm trolling too much. But yes.
That is funny, though, to think of it like that.
5% movement speed on Bloodforged. This has got to feel so good for, like, Mercury and that kind of stuff. Like, oh, man. Mercury with Bloodforged already feels great. It's going to feel even better with the 5% movement speed. I think.
Could this be a hunter item, BaRRa?
Yeah, 100%, bro. Any, like, movement speed I can get to, like,
we've seen this on hunters from metas from time to time as well already.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, like, if you need the early rush against someone who's going, like, Crusher and you can save up for the Bloodforged spike, the movement speed gives it so much value. And if I can get away with, say, like, Hachi going, like, Cal and Bloodforged, and I can have, like, that much extra movement speed in lane in the 1v1, that's gotta be sick. Like, that's gotta feel good.
Yeah, this item, I mean, just that extra movement speed all the time is going to be a big deal for a lot of assassins, not just ones like Mercury who need the... But Mercury was making a little bit of comeback because of that change where he can now Mage you look over walls.
Yep.
So maybe we see more of it.
Yep.
Overall, I think this was another item that seemed like a casual fan favorite, but was never ever really that good. So really, we were going to put just the movement speed on it probably, but then we were like, man, it's expensive, but we can't take too much off it because it's already getting a really good stat. So I guess we did the absolute minimum we normally be able to do, which is a little strange, but it feels good to have
No,
as a treat. 50 gold as a treat.
50 gold is a treat, and you also get your 5% movement speed. It should feel very good. So hopefully you're equipped on the gods that you are comfortable on whenever Season 9 launches. And all these changes have gone through. We will be going over gods next time because, again, there's so many, and we're already over an hour for this podcast.
You usually try to keep it to an hour?
Yeah, we were told initially, like, 30 to 45 minutes for this podcast. We were like, oh, that's easy. We have never had a 30-minute podcast in over a year of doing this.
Well, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but I feel like none of them are under an hour long. I feel like
I feel like I gotta
every
get my
podcast I
money's
listen
worth.
to is like an hour and a half to 2 hours long.
Yeah, I agree.
Other items from the PTS2, you can't just skip out on those. Spectral armor got nerfed quite heavily.
Yep.
Let's go.
It was nerfed twice.
Yep.
Once by a small amount, and then a further time to all the way to 30%, I believe, of its crit reduction from 55, which is the full 25 to balance out with the crit passive, which there was a lot of changes where we didn't necessarily nerf things to the same tier as the exact crit change was, because there's going to be some complexities there, and just doing everything 1-to-1 doesn't necessarily have the results you want, and potentially over nerfs things or whatever before they start. But either way, there was a lot of going on with that. There was some other gods that were adjusted with that, but we're not talking gods. We're talking items. A lot of relics were nerfed in PTS, which is something you should take a look at.
Yep.
Typhon's Fang, a little bit of extra healing from that, going down 5%, as well as the Blackthorn change, which we did talk about. So I think that's all of the item changes, although make sure when you read the patch notes to scroll down and read the PTS changes, because there's a lot of important stuff down there. Many completely new gods being changed that weren't in the initial launch, as well as the change to the Conquest Jungle start spawn time and spawn order.
Yes, big
in
change.
the PTS section, which is a big one. So make sure to read that before you show up on Tuesday, or you might be a little confused.
Yes, plenty of reading to do.
And a lot of people missed it because we put it in PTS, which is sorry about that, but definitely worth a look.
Yep, you got your homework before Season 9 launches.
Study up, chat.
Study up, get ready to go. Should be very fun. And all we've got left to do today is do our random question of the week, which I actually thought of this time, so I don't have to spend 3 minutes sitting here thinking.
There's that preparation I was told about.
Yeah. Oh, I do a lot of it for sure. Ha ha ha. Anyways, tomorrow, this is actually pretty rare. I'm kind of going to burn you guys and myself at the same time. It is very rare that in the Smite scene, I could have a podcast where I have 2 people who are older than me on the show with me. I feel like I'm part of the look, we're all in this together, fellas, okay? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
And tomorrow is my birthday. I turn 30 tomorrow. I'm out of my 20s starting tomorrow. So I wanted to ask you guys specifically, talk to me about the 30s and how it's been going for you guys so far. What do I? This is a selfish random question of the week to get me prepped for my next decade.
Do you want to go first, Ajax? Or do you want me to go first?
No, you go first.
So I feel basically the exact same as my late 20s. I don't really feel like a lot different. Mainly, I guess, just because I'm 31 now. Like, it's not a big difference, and I've been taking way better care of my body as I hit my 30s than I did in my late 20s. So I'm feeling better now, and I mean, I'm trying to think of like any like bad things that have happened. I don't know. I feel
sounds like
30
is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of late 20s and early 30s, your metabolism starts slowing down, so you start getting the reality check in the face of like,
been there.
This ain't going anywhere. So then, right when I hit 30, I was like, I gotta start getting in shape again. I gotta start taking care of myself. So it was kind of just like probably a good thing for me, I guess, to kind of reality check myself in the face.
Yeah.
And yeah,
that's a
so
good one.
30's going good.
Okay.
31's going good.
That's encouraging.
I think BaRRa was totally on point where he said it doesn't really feel any different, because let me tell you, like the 30s hit me big time because I got married, bought a house, had a kid, having another kid, all within the last like 4 years, and I just turned 34.
Wow.
So I essentially, I don't know, I turned 30 and I was just sign me up for all that adult stuff. You know, I just like went to some government agency and stamped my name on something that was like, I'm ready. And it still doesn't feel that different. You know, I still forget that you're 4 years younger than me. I still work with people who are in their early 20s and I don't even notice the difference. I'm just like, you know, happy to talk to them. They're interesting people. I mean, I love my work and my team and everything like that. And it's like being around so many young people makes me not feel old, but I have no idea if they perceive me as like being really old or not.
Yeah.
Like that's always something I wonder is like, you know, I show up and like talking about the latest, you know, meme or video game trailer or something with people on my team who are much, much younger than me. And like, it feels totally normal to me. It's just like another day at work, but I have no idea if they're just like, dang, how does old man Ajax even know what that is? But,
Yeah.
so maybe that's the only thing is you start to wonder about how people perceive you, if they perceive you as old or not. But from your perspective, it's all the same stuff. You know, it's all about just what you choose to do. So
That's fair.
you know, if you choose to have a kid, it'll feel different.
Yes. Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think Mifflin is the only person that I would always notice is like, oh, that guy's definitely way younger than me. But Mifflin's just in a league of his own in a lot of respects. Shout out to Mifflin.
Yeah, how old is Mifflin? See, I don't perceive that at all.
He may as well be 17 years old to me. I don't know. He's above 21. I know that, but
okay,
that's about it. I think he's like 22 or 23.
I don't know. Maybe it's just something working in the games industry makes it feel like it keeps you young because you have to keep up in touch with all of this young people stuff.
True.
Like, kind of have to.
Yep.
Even though like I still, you know, don't keep up with everything. It's impossible. There's just too much things going on. But that maybe helps.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're asking someone who didn't work with you, like me and BaRRaCCuDDa, you might get different answers.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Speaking of keeping up with stuff, AJ, new Pokemon comes out end of this week. Are you?
I know my backlog is so full though, man. I got a bunch of games for Christmas. I just beat Returnal. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working through Metroid Dread now.
Metroid was awesome. I never finished it. I really need to.
I don't know how far I am through it, but I put a good bit into it. I'm definitely going to finish it. I don't want to get distracted even before. I'm trying to finish it before Tuesday, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I want to play the new Pokemon. I know that a lot of the Reddit hates it, which makes me want to buy it even more.
Yep.
I was trying to figure out what game.
Every single time Reddit has a perception of game development, it's by default wrong. So that means the game is going to be awesome.
Yep. I have intentionally.
But I'm a huge Pokemon fan, but I'm still probably gonna wait a little bit.
I have not watched any trailers, read any reviews. I find those to be very unhelpful to me unless I'm like on the fence about buying it. But Pokemon has earned my initial trust at the very least. And I'm gonna be
I'm a huge Pokemon fan, and I do want to play it. I tend to play more competitive battling though in Pokemon, which I feel like this is a new game. It's not really going to have that, right? Not in a traditional sense.
Sure.
Because it's kind of a new combat system. I don't even know if it has player versus player battles.
Interesting.
I don't even know if it does, honestly. But I haven't read much about it either.
Right.
I do want to play it. I just might not play it right at launch because my backlog is so big right now, and I'm trying to get through some games, but I might get through it.
I'm just always.
And then I gotta save space for Elden Ring.
Yes, of course. I have to get through a good portion of it before Horizon Zero Dawn 2 comes out. That's
another one I'm really excited for, but I probably won't play right at launch.
Oh, catch me slamming day one. I absolutely cannot wait.
It was really good. I played the first one really late. I waited till the PC port.
Yep.
And I really liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
It's my favorite open world single player game I've ever played.
I still think Ghost of Tsushima is better in that category, but only by a slight amount.
That game is great too.
They're both well and above all the other open world games, single player games, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Me and Aggro have already had this conversation before. Those are definitely the best two.
Yep, they're absolutely unbelievable. Okay, that's enough. We've been talking for too long, and I want to watch what's happening in this Bills-Chiefs game because apparently it's going crazy. So thanks everyone for watching. Enjoy Season 9 launch. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks again, AJ, for coming on, and we will catch you guys next week when we can talk some Season 9 actual impressions of some of these gods and that kind of stuff. Give us a follow, rating, all that kind of stuff. yeah, read your patch notes. Lord knows you need to, because I know
You
I
didn't
need
do
to.
a single ad break during my section. During
Nope,
this section,
not today, AJ. We were
I'm
stocked full.
flattered by that. Actually,
We had to
Aw.
keep it nice and tight, just like you can't. Never mind, I'm just kidding.
I was going to talk about how I just shaved before I came on the show, just to give you an opening.
No, I'm just trolling. All right, thanks everyone. We'll catch you next time. BaRRa, you know what to do.
Bye.
That was good. I'll take it.
I'm getting better, bro. Getting better. These lungs getting better.
It's funny to me